magical, transcendent moment, part of the day that I'm like, I just want to capture this. I want to remember this. I want to savor it. And so I just laid there and I just thought about the day and played back through, just remembering the events of the day and what made it so sweet.
With God, there is always more. More love, more life, more freedom. Welcome to Zoweh's Exploring More with Michael Thompson. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Our Heavenly Father has provided many delightful inns for us along our journey, but He takes great care to see that we do not mistake any of them for home." Join me and the team as we explore the kingdom together, discovering the deep truths and offering encouragement for the journey. There is always more.
Welcome to the Exploring More podcast with Michael Thompson. I'm Michael Thompson. I'm with Robin Thompson, and this is kind of a new deal. We are
lots of new
video.
Lots of new,
including video. So there is
new room,
new room,
new equipment,
new fancy equipment. Yeah,
I'm here.
Yeah,
it's not totally new, but it's been a while.
Well, you're not SJ, is what,
right?
And he has definitely and still will be engaged heavily in the Exploring More podcast. Particularly, we thought we could, you and I, as I think they call us founders. When you start something, you get to be the founders of it, but we thought we would tackle, where is Zoweh living in the moment, and where's Zoweh going? And the interesting thing about this, I think, for us is it's so much a part of our lives. It's so much a part of our lives that answering that question can be tied up or tangled up or connected with how we're doing. And that's true for all of our team, I think, and our relationships as we try to do this in a redemptive community way, which we'll be podcasting more about that this fall. It has bearing on the one on the other, if that makes sense. So living in the moment and then talking about what's next for Zoweh. Well, living in the moment with us, and what's next for us is tangled up in that. So I would like to just start by talking a little bit about where we're at, how we're doing, and how was summer? I mean, here we are at the tail end of it. Fall's coming. We've had our first cooler days where it actually was hitting the 60s at night in North Carolina, which is not normal. We stay pretty warm through August, but instead of talking about the weather, let's talk a little bit about how's the summer been for us, for you?
I thought of, when you asked me that question earlier, I thought of two words: rhythm and margin, that describe a little bit of the summer for me. And rhythm for me has felt this summer like there has been a good rhythm. I feel like I have found a good rhythm this summer that has felt like it has contained some margin. It hasn't been an all-out sprint, which has felt nice. It has felt like there's been some space and some margin for some good things. For some reading, for some exploration. I'm taking a class. Sherry and Dana and I are taking a class together, a spiritual formation class. So there's been some space to read and explore there. Right. And I've really loved that. I think of the rhythm of enjoying our deck. I don't want to steal your thunder. You can talk about that. But time with you there, time with friends there, that has felt like some sweet rhythm, with morning coffee, afternoon coffee, if you're me. I've enjoyed that. And then the rhythm in the day-to-day of being here at the tower with our friends, with our team. I've really enjoyed that. I have felt more connected this past year and more a part of things and more hands-on, and have really enjoyed working side by side with Sherry. I've loved that. We are a good team, and we say that often to each other. We really enjoy. We have found a rhythm together, actually, where we work well, and we have found a way of doing certain emails and writing and editing and guiding and all the things. We have found a good rhythm, and we're still finding some of that, and it's been good.
It's been a huge 6 months for the women's lane of Zoweh, and so working with Sherry and working together has been needed. And
I'm glad I like her, because it's been a lot.
There's a lot of editing, a lot of writing of the deepening journey we'll talk about in a little while, because that's been a huge part of the summer. But I agree with you, being with the team more through even the summer months, where we do our vacations, do our trips, do different things. Not quite as much with allies, not quite as much, definitely not with the retreat conference space, and yet, there's been a lot of folks, getting things, continuing to get things done and checking boxes and moving things forward. And I think what I love about what you're saying about you and Sherry, I think our team does that well, where we are friends in the kingdom. We're friends on mission together, and those friendships find things to do. We do a lot together. We end up, on porches and at dining room tables and living room spaces, but we do that also here in the tower, in the space that we work in. I loved our first Zoweh Philos, Philos being the Greek word for friendship, and really deep belovedness, friendship in that way. So Zoweh Philos is Zoweh friends, life friends, and that was a great thing that we worked together on as a team, bringing our financial partners, donors, whatever you might want to call them, but our friends, providing an environment for a couple days for them to come together and just
come closer.
Experience us in Durham. And come to the tower. We had a couple dinners. We had a couple good long days of engagement. So that was a big summer initiative that we got to be a part of. But go ahead.
I think of something else that we've started this summer is we've called them living room conversations. I call them that. You call them something else. I'm not sure what.
Zoweh issues.
Zoweh issues. So
but here, family time, team time. Yeah.
Here at the tower on Wednesdays over lunch, and then after lunch we have conversations over important things that we want to explore together.
Right.
And that has been really good and disruptive and significant.
Yeah. I mean, when you get 14 people together, they're not all at the same place, but I think our team is at least in the same chapter, if not, and heading in the same direction. But there's things from social issues and faith conversations and where we are, and all that has been a part of those. That's what we're trying to facilitate. So far, we tend to leave those times smiling, which is good that we're able to do that. What else has summer been about?
I would say summer kicked off with a family time at the beach for the week. Our family. Is that okay to talk about? Or do we need to keep it with Zoweh? Okay.
No, we can.
And that was around Hannah's graduation from grad school. And a kind friend let us use their beach house for a week. And it was wonderful. It was a glorious place in a glorious space. And yet it was a really challenging time for our family. And I would or I guess it would be easy to say we had a great week at the beach with our family, but that wouldn't be true. It was
important.
About midway.
It was an important time.
Train wreck. That, that it was really from over about 20 years of hurt, and that this collision that was really hard, and how I wanted to, everything in me wanted to default to what I have always defaulted to, which I just wanted the ground to open up and swallow me whole. I wanted to make it stop. I wanted to make it okay. I wanted everybody, why can't we all get along? I wanted to say, okay, say you're sorry, say I forgive you. Say you're sorry, say I forgive you, and we move forward.
Right.
But that would be doing what we had done for
when
20
they were little,
years.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that would mean, that would allow for nothing important to happen. No conversation, no exploration, no curiosity, no validating how the others are feeling. Therefore, no possibility of true repair, any sort.
Right.
No movement towards restoration, and no healing. And so we stayed with it and entered in and asked some hard questions and explored and stayed at the table, really. I think of Kurt Thompson talking about staying in the room, not leaving, but
that's living in the moment.
Yes, being present.
That's part of what we're talking about.
As hard as it is, And actually, much of it turned out to be about you and I, and what the environment that we had created with our girls, with them growing up, and that didn't allow every voice to be heard and emotions to be expressed and things to be processed. Right. And so much had gone unsaid for so many years, and so much held inside, and that hurt doesn't just go away.
Right.
It has to be felt and processed and entered into. And that felt like an important time at the beach to allow for that. Yeah. It didn't all go, not everything was restored and healed, but it was, to your point, it was important. Yeah. And it was significant.
Great doesn't always mean, packages and presents and candles and stuff, but there was some...
Right.
There was some great I look at that moment and I was ready for it. I saw it as an answer to collective prayers, asking God to do work in our family with us. I mean, there was a lot going on from multiple, like you said, train wreck. I mean, a wreck is something hit something, and in many ways, I thought that was an end of silence to a lot of things that you described, and a beginning of, okay, so how do we do this differently?
Yes, how do we move?
So I feel like I had been trained for that for weeks and months, not knowing necessarily where or when, but that moment, those moments at the beach around a graduation and in our family and extended family really gave us, I thought, some opportunities to do some things differently, and in that way, an answer to God. Would you help us? Would you show us? Would you give us? And I want to talk about that some more in a minute, because I think that's exactly what living in the moment, looks like, especially if you can see the weight and value of the moment and what God might be offering, though it doesn't sound nor feel like a party or some really nice gift. I've always wanted one of those. Right. But didn't a very, very beautiful, important, prickly, hard kind of gift, right? That needed to be unwrapped and seen and go, okay, that's where we're going. That's what is needed here. And that was why I think it was important. So
right. Yeah, for sure. And I don't think, Michael, that I would have been able to move in a different way or been able to see that as a new opportunity had I not been on a journey these past 2 years or so where I have had to do a lot of my own work. And I know you have done a lot of your own work independently of each other. And I will say, I remember the greatest gift Ashley has ever given to me is at one point, 2.5 years ago, she had been talking about repair. She had been talking about healing and
restoration in her life and
but
story, and in the relationships that were that had brought about some of the brokenness and the wounding. Parental.
She had been doing a lot of her own work.
Right.
And so I asked her. I said, Ashley, I didn't know what this word repair really meant. And I could guess, but she was using it in a context that I needed a little bit of a fuller picture. So I said, Ashley, what do you mean I said, what would repair look like for you and me in our relationship? And she looked at me and she said, you doing your own work. You facing your own story and engaging your own story. So I was like, okay, I don't know what that looks like, but sign me up. I want that. And that's when I embarked on more of a journey of, looking hard at my own story, engaging certain stories, and having someone help me do that became very, very important. Otherwise, I am going to continue to bring the same kind of responses, the same kind of defaults.
The autopilot's role.
At the beach, at the train wreck happens, and I default to the same patterns, the same things. So it felt different this time. Not perfect, but where I was able to hold what and really genuinely be curious and ask questions.
Great. Yeah, I was going to jump in with that. You beat me to it. I think that is a really significant part of living in the moment. Not coming to conclusions, not coming to the auto responses, the reaction things that come up in any, not just the hard things, and that is the space to kind of bring God in, to turn to God in moments with, as you said, curiosity and asking questions. It maybe had happened to us growing up, or it just gets replaced somewhere along the way as a standard. This standard of this is how you should think and this is how you should feel.
And it's not okay to feel this way. You don't hate your sister. No, you don't.
Right. Yes. So emotions and feelings are kind of negated, and so living in the moment has a lot of paying attention to a lot of things that are happening in you, and potentially you might even, with the persons that you're with, what might they be thinking or feeling? Not so you can correct it, but so that you can understand it, so that you can let them speak to that. And that's where if you're curious with your heart and your feelings and your thinking, we've been learning that living in the moment is to be curious about what they might be thinking and feeling and believing in a moment. And it's been wonderful. It takes more time. It's challenging. You can always revert back to the quick of, which often is judgments, really. Yeah. I'm judging
assumptions and
judgments that's how you think and feel. And so I'm sticking you in that place of whatever I perceive that to be. So living in the moment is, I think a lot of us could think we're doing it because we're present in that moment, but that's not what we're necessarily talking about.
Right. Just because you're here, it doesn't mean
you're living in the moment.
Right.
It's the ability to take more into those moments, and to know that there's always so much more going on in a moment.
Yes. It involves a body, soul, spirit integration and an awareness of how I am feeling in my body right now when you say that to me, or when you look at me that way, or, how does that make me feel? And having the paying attention and the presence of mind and body and soul and spirit, because the Spirit of God is in us, with us. We are Trinitarian, body, soul, spirit, made in His image. And it's the presence of God in our present moment. And it reminds me of the quote yesterday that we just happened to say, the Viktor Frankl. Yeah. Is this a good time to share that?
Sure it is. Yeah, that's a great one.
We just happened to be talking about it yesterday. And so I looked it up because I couldn't remember the last line. Okay. But he says... So
Viktor Frankl, real quick.
Yes, give
was
background.
A World War II concentration camp survivor, Jewish man who during his incarceration, during his imprisonment, he was, walking with God. He was taking notes. He was journaling. He was observing, in very hard moments.
Oh my gosh.
And coming to some incredible godly conclusions. Discoveries, yes, about, even in the environment he was in. So, he's a good one to look up and explore the meaning. What's the book?
I can't
Meaning
remember.
of Man. Yeah. Anyway.
I can't remember.
Okay.
But
this quote, I think, is from there.
Yeah, maybe so. But look up Viktor Frankl, and even this quote, he says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have that quote, believe it or not, in King Me, in the new book.
Do you?
I do, coming out. And how I referenced it was that moment and the power to choose. I write a little bit about that's your will. If your will is so compromised that you don't have that moment,
it's not available to you.
And you can't choose, and it is reactionary, then that you're not really living in that moment. You're being tsunamied by it. You're being overrun by it. You're being pushed into fear or kind of demanded into anger. I mean, all that fast, bang, bang, bang. So if I think he's right, I believe that is a quality of someone who is slowing down and observing and being willing to see and take into account multiple things before determining or reacting. That is the will.
And curiosity plays a role in there too, I think, to be curious. Yeah. Why am I feeling this? Why am I experiencing this? Why is this my default? Why am I so quick to react in judgment? But to be curious.
So read it one more time, because it is a wonderful...
Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose. I thought it was ability to choose our response. Yeah, in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom.
Yeah, from a man in a concentration camp who is experiencing unbelievable circumstances. So
if he's able to do that.
I heard a long time ago from a coach, actually, you can't choose your circumstances, but you can choose how you are going to respond to them. And I would say, if you have a choice at all, versus the autopilot or the way that the false self gets programmed and the way that it is functioning. So, living in the moment. I'd love to go back to the deck a little bit and continue. So I've dreamed of having, I had a little 10 by 10, 25-year-old back deck, where 25 years, the sun and different things on it. I mean, it was, but it was my back deck for all those years. And that's where I had a big umbrella out there, would rotate it to get under.
You had like 5 umbrellas out there, and then
leaving them
the
up
wind and the snow and
leaving them up in the storms.
And,
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I have invested in a few of those. That's right. But so we finally got to kind of pull things together, and with the help of a couple good friends, we have this big now 27 by 15 back deck. I'm looking at Caleb over there. He's been on the back deck as he helps us with our podcasting. I mean, I just love it. And we got it in the spring, so I had a lot of those cooler times and weather-wise. And yeah, it's given me moments, lots of them already. And it's exceeded hopes and expectations for gathering friends, having the team over. We've celebrated some of the conference retreats when we kind of have our week after the events and get back together and recovering from them and being able to celebrate, telling the stories. It's just a wonderful place. But we heard recently at an event a man was speaking at, and he said, create a beautiful space in your home for beauty, for rest. Pick somewhere in your home and create a beautiful space where beauty, rest. He said because you need beauty and rest. You need our souls, our hearts, our minds. So to sit out there with coffee and just look off the back deck into the woods and just have the dogs there and just be perched there for 15, 20 minutes. I mean, I can always get into my devotional things and listening things that I listen to in the mornings and what I'm reading, but just even to be in that quiet space as the birds get started, as the squirrels begin to move, and you can observe. I was with SJ the other day walking in the woods with the dogs. We were, and we had a couple boys, Josh's boys. Ben and Judah, and what are they, 10 and 11, I think? Yeah. I mean, they are boys. And so they are, they're dorking around with sticks and throwing things and, and just what's this? And, found some green pine cones. And he said, these are dragon cones. I'm like, all right, they're dragon cones. We're going to call them dragon cones. But it was just so here we are, these men, older boys, and these little guys walking through the woods. And SJ says, slow down, look. And they're kind of looking around and they're like, what? And there was a big black king snake just down the shelf towards the creek before you get to the creek. I mean, it was a big one. And he said, it's amazing what you see when you slow down, especially right in the woods. But or at the graduation at the beach. Or at on the porch. There's something about slowing down and trusting that you will see more if you can just slow it down just a little bit.
Yeah. I have a question for you. So you said that as you sit on the deck in those 15, 20 minutes where you're just sipping on coffee and observing the beauty and seeing nature, just enjoying all of it, listening, hearing, and then you said something about turning into your, kind of devotional time. And do you believe that God is any more in the devotional time than he is in those?
No.
First
No, not at all. I think as we ask the question often at our conference, right? How many moments do you believe God is in? And everybody, from the crowd, well, all of them, you'll hear him kind of whispering that. And I think that is the right answer, that he's in all of them, and yet somehow we've decided that certain moments are more noble, or certain moments are more holy, or certain moments are more godly, or certain moments are more if I'm singing, I'm worshiping. you know, and so no, I don't believe he's more in one of those moments where I might be reading from the Bible, or I might be writing, you know, on the new book or anything like that. I've learned that, you know, there's no distance between the coffee and sitting there and giving him my thoughts and knowing that I'm with him and he's with me always, and coming back into alignment with that over and over again. He's probably more with me in those 15 minutes because I'm more with him than I am when I'm doing something, you know. So it's a great question.
Yeah, and I was talking with somebody recently last week, and she was in Colorado, and she lives in North Carolina, but was able to escape to Colorado and enjoy the cool temperatures and in her happy place. And she was in a stream that she goes to every year at this time. And she sits right by the stream. She might put her feet in the water. And she is absolutely enraptured by life and the sweetness and the, you know, just feeling that thin space, experiencing God there. And at one point she said, and then I realized I needed to get back to my hotel and do my devotions. And I asked her the same question I asked you. Do you feel like God is any more in those moments or any less in the moments that you are in his creation and nature with your feet in the water and you're just absolutely feeling the presence of God and in an embodied way? And she had never thought of that.
Right. Yeah, I had recently, it's funny, we hadn't talked about this, but I'd recently kind of dove back into Screw Tape letters, and one of the things Screw Tape says to Wormwood, do not let him take long walks. And there's other briefings in those letters, like, you know, if he wants to go to church, Screw Tape says, we've got a couple churches picked out for him. Like in their files, they have a couple churches picked out for them. Plenty. You know, but don't let him have solitude. Don't let him have long walks. Don't let him ponder his existence and that of what might have made him or who is for him, and he calls obviously that the enemy, you know, from Screw Tape. But that's I think about living in the moment. We came across that 3 miles per hour God, 3 mph, 3 miles per hour God. How fast does a person walk a mile? It's 3 miles per hour, you know, versus the busyness and the hurriedness and the schedule. I need to go do this. I need to go do that. The to-do lists and even, you know, being I think with God on, you know, on any given day, all day. What does that look like? But I came across this Norman Mailer, who is a 20th century author. The River Runs Through It, and kind of a poet author, but very much like John Muir, who has that God and nature connection. And he said, every moment of one's existence, one is growing into more or retreating into less. One is always living a little more or dying a little bit. You know, and I've always loved that quote and felt like not that's the challenge as much as it's the invitation. You know, it's not more productive and more successful. It's more quiet. It's more contemplative. It's more present. It's more taking in and even being with myself. You know, is a critical space where the unruliness kind of I get interrupted still way too often by, like your friend, what do I need to go be doing? What needs to get done? When did I change the oil last? Just things that just kind of just drop in to, moments of, quiet and pondering and, before the day kind of sweeps me off into, some, like we were talking about, with chores and things that need to get taken care of. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I was trying to remember the term because you were talking about 3 miles per hour. It's Godspeed.
Godspeed.
I couldn't remember the term.
Yeah. Thanks for finishing that thought for me. Godspeed. The 3 mile per hour God. Anything else before I give the little exploring more spiel, going to the review, share, all that good stuff?
Well, I guess I could end by saying one of the practices in this class that I'm learning is the daily examine, where towards the end of the day you look back on the day.
That's good exercise. That's a good practice.
It's
for
another
sure.
slowing down and noticing and pausing and remembering and looking to see where God has been good and present, and it helps you not just keep rushing forward,
right,
but staying present in the moment and looking back. And I remember one of the highlights from the summer, in light of this, was a trip we took with Ashley and Anders in Maine. And that was a highlight. We loved everything about
Portland,
that.
Maine,
yes, being with them
June.
in that place, all of it. I could go on and on. And after one of the days, I came back, and I hadn't learned about the examine yet, that it was a thing. But I came upstairs into our room in the VRBO, this really cool house that we were renting, and I was just wiped out, tired, so I went to bed early. But it was dusk outside, and I just leaned up against the back of the bed and just looked out the windows and looked at the trees. And it was just like this, there's a term for it, and I don't know what it is, but it was just this magical, transcendent moment, part of the day, that I'm like, I just want to capture this. I want to remember this. I want to savor it. And so I just laid there and I just thought about the day and played back through, just remembering the events of the day and what made it so sweet. And being with Ashley for lunch that day was especially sweet, and what we experienced together. And then the four of us cooking together in the kitchen and just remembering and savoring it and storing it up in my heart. It was just a really sweet, but that can be a way that we remember and stay present and allow. I think what makes it hold is the embodied practice, because I felt it. And what does this feel like? What smells do I remember? What am I seeing, and what am I hearing, and I'm feeling and taking it all in? So I think that's a practice that helps us to be present. And to add that to the end of the day, it's I would say that's got to be one of the wiser invitations to what happened today. There's always that posture of what do I need to do? What's in front of me? But reminds me of the Soren Kierkegaard quote that goes something like this, in a paraphrase anyway, that life has to be lived going forward, but it's best understood looking backward. So if that practice of what happened today, God, what happened today? Who was I with, and what was that about? I think that if you have somebody to share that with, like we do it, pretty regularly. How was your day? And then
And instead of that being a question that you kind of roll by as you get to dinner or you close things out, to enter into that space and have some conversation. Well, I met with this person, I talked to this person, I texted these guys, and not just a rehashing of the detail, but I think your point is really what was I thinking and feeling, and how was I experiencing the day? That reflection is really, if you miss one of those Viktor Frankl moments of the what is it, the circumstances and then the stimulus,
and the response.
Yeah, the stimulus and the response.
Yeah.
What if you could recapture one or two? And that goes back to how many moments is God in a day? And if you can reflect back on your day, you can relive that moment.
Yeah.
You can recover some of that moment. And I think that's a different way to be with God.
Yeah.
Than kind of the closing day prayer.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a trait. Thank you, God, for da-da. But thank you for saying that. I felt overwhelmingly grateful. I felt just this incredible gratitude that I just felt like in the words of my mom, I felt like I could burst, like my heart could burst. Right. I just felt this amazing gratitude and love and goodness and it just was a sweet moment shared just with God, and reflective.
So
and
back to this point we're talking about,
holy.
That was June. You're telling the story now. It was treasured then. Your body language.
I can feel it and remember it because I did that.
Because you know what I mean? Into it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Not
good.
all days are like that. Let me say, but to have those, to capture those moments.
Right.
But even on hard days, what does it look like to reflect back and be able to see, God, where were you in this? How did I experience you in this?
Yeah.
Or what am I still hoping to know of you?
Well, we'll close it with that and just say, hey, welcome friends and allies to the audio and video Exploring More Podcast 2.0. You're going to get to see the characters that you've been able to listen to. And if you're new, then that's wonderful too. Welcome to the Exploring More Podcast. We will continue to kind of learn how to do this, I hope, and offer this in different ways. Yes, the normal podcast platforms, but there'll be some more of these podcasts on YouTube now and in some other spaces on our own website. But for the Exploring More podcast, go to Zoweh.org/exploring more. You can do reviews, whatever platform you're watching on. You can send us an email if you want us to talk about anything more, if you want us to explore anything more deeply. If maybe something that has been shared has been important to you, we love those emails too. So, for myself, Michael Thompson, and my bride, Robin, it's good to talk with you and good to talk about with you what it is to live in the moment.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for being with us on the Exploring More podcast. We'll see you next time.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Exploring More. The landing page for this podcast is Zoweh.org/podcast. That's ZOWEH.org/podcast, where you can find the show notes and various platforms to which we broadcast. You can also find us and the Life of More by visiting Zoweh on YouVersion Bible app, Right Now Media, our Facebook page, and Zoweh on Instagram and Twitter. Remember, with God there is always more, and you were made for more.